Good afternoon, and as it's October, the month of Halloween, I thought I'd go through this book, A Ballad History of England from 1588 to the present day, and play a little of a ballad published in 1618 about it says, the damnable practices of three Lincolnshire witches, Joan Flower and her two daughters Margaret and Philip Flower, against Henry Lord Rose with others, the children of the Right Honourable the Earl of Rutland, at Belvoir Castle, who for the same were executed at Lincoln the 11th of March last, to the tune of The Lady's Fall. And the music for this, the tune for this, goes roughly, and I'll see if I can, yep. There. And the lyrics run, of damned deeds and deadly dole I make my mournful song, by witches done in Lincolnshire where they have lived long, and practised many a wicked deed within that country there, which fills my breast and bosom full of sobs and trembling fear. Fine Belvoir Castle is a place that welcome gives to all, by which the Earl of Rutland gains the loves of great and small. His countess of like friendliness doth bear as free a mind, and so from them both rich and poor do helps and succour find. Amongst the rest witches three that to this castle came, called Margaret and Philip Flower, and old Joan their mother's name, which women daily found relief, and were contented well, and at the last this Margaret was invited there to dwell. She took unto such household charge as unto her belonged, yet she possessed with fraud and guile that her place and office wronged. She secretly purloined things unto her mother home, and at unlawful hours thence would likely go and come. And when the Earl and Countess heard, and all her dealings knew, they grieved much that she should prove unto them so untrue, and so discharged her of the house, therein to come no more, for of her lewd and filching pranks of proofs there were some store. And likewise that her mother was a woman full of wrath, a swearing and blaspheming wretch, for speaking sudden death. And how that neighbours in her looks malicious signs did see, and some of her affirmed she dealt with spirits, and so a witch might be. And that her sister Philip was well known as strumpet lewd, and how she had a young man's love bewitched and subdued, which made the young man often say he had no power to leave her cursed enticing company that did him so deceive. When to the Earl and Countess thus these just complaints were made, their hearts began to breed dislike, and greatly grew afraid, commanding that she never should return unto their sight, nor back into the castle come, but be excluded quite. Whereat the old malicious fiend with these her darlings thought. The Earl and Countess them disgraced, and to their discredits wrought, in turning thus despitefully her daughter out of doors, for which revengement in her mind she made a mischief stores. Hereat the devil made entrance in, his kingdom to enlarge, and put his executing wrath unto these women's charge, nor caring whom it lighted on, the innocent or no, and offered them his diligence to fly, to run, and go, and to attend in pretty forms of dog or of cat or rat, to which they freely gave consent, and much rejoiced thereat. And as it seemed, they sold their souls for service of such spirits, and sealing it with drops of blood, damnation so inherits. These women thus being devils grown, most cunning in their arts, with charms and with enchanting spells they played most damned parts. They did forspeak and cattle killed, and neighbours could not thrive, and oftentimes their children young of life they would deprive. At length the Countess and her lord to fits of sickness grew, the which they deemed the hand of God, and their corrections due, which crosses patiently they bore, misdoubting no such deeds as from these wicked witches here maliciously proceeds. Yet so their malice more increased, so that mischief set in foot, to blast the branches of that house and undermine the root. Their eldest son, Henry, Lord Ross, possessed with sickness strange, did lingering lie tormented long, till death his life did change. Their second son, Lord Francis next, felt like continuing woe, both day and night in grievous sort, yet none the cause did know. And then the Lady Catherine into such torments fell, by these their devilish practices, as grieves my heart to tell. And that is just the first part. It goes on apparently for another 10 verses. That's the second part, which described the arrest, confession and execution in Lincoln of the Flower daughters. The mother, professing innocence, called for some bread and butter to eat. If I be guilty, may it pass never through me. Convincing proof of guilt was furnished, however, at least for a Jacobin public, for, so mumbling it within her mouth, she never spake more words, but fell down dead. And a note to this says, the Earl of Rutland was Francis Manners, 6th Earl. A monument in Bottisford Church, Leicestershire, shows him and the Countess kneeling and 2 children, said in an inscription to have been bewitched to death. Belvoir Castle is Belvoir Castle, still the residence of the current Duke of Rutland, and March last was 1618. Now, obviously, it's a very, very grim ballad, especially as you can very much doubt whether these women were actually guilty. I don't doubt that they were guilty of filching, pinching stuff, and they may have made some threat. A lot of the witchcraft accusations in this period come from, an elderly woman. They're often called mumping witches because they come round, they ask for something from the householder, like, can I have some of your milk or your butter or whatever? And when they're turned away, they say something like, you'll be sorry, and make some kind of veiled threat. These threats then become interpreted as a spell if people afterwards become ill. And then that leads to the witchcraft accusation, and it goes on from there, and obviously gets very, very nasty. Now, I'm not sure if many of the witches accused in this period should actually be considered innocent. There was a move a little while ago to have a pardon to the Pendle witches. Now, this is a case in point. A friend of mine studied the case, and these are not pleasant women. They do make threats of casting spells, and if you live in a society where everyone believes in the efficacy of magic, and that if you put a spell on them, that will kill them, then that is a serious threat. We would dismiss such a case now because, most of us, or at least most of us officially, don't believe in magic, so we'd probably just laugh at it. But in societies where those threats are taken very seriously, it can kill, simply because the bewitched person then that really does believe that he's being bewitched and he's going to die, so they take to their beds and just waste away because, they've been bewitched. Now, something like this obviously seems to have happened here. Here, whether the three women did cast any kind of spell, I doubt. I very much doubt that they sold their soul to the devil as well. This is going to come from the interrogators. There's a set ideology of witchcraft in this period, and the interrogations get very, very unpleasant. Obviously, torture will be used up to a certain extent, and so, faced with that pressure, people generally will crack and say what the torturers want them to say. So that's the background to this. When the Witchfinder General and his mate John Stern, were going hunting later on in the Cromwellian interregnum in East Anglia, Hopkins and Stern noted that if Satan was all powerful and giving these witches, immense powers in return for their souls, why is it that he only chose poor old women and they were only given pennies for their souls? Clearly it didn't make sense, or the logic didn't make sense. On the plus side of witch hunting in this period, there's actually very little of it in England. There's more of it in Scotland, because Scotland adopts the continental witch hunting techniques and ideologies. I've been told that there are only actually 5 outbreaks of witchcraft in England, and if you look through some of the consistory cases for say the Diocese of Bath and Wells in the 16th century, or at least for a few periods in the 16th century, a couple of decades, what you find is that a lot of the people accused of witchcraft are simply acquitted, or else it's you're guilty. Now say 3 Hail Marys, and they're put on a penance and told to go away. Some of them are so old and infirm that they actually die before they're brought to trial. But there's but the idea that once you are accused of witchcraft, that's it. You're helpless and you're going to be judged guilty, at least in England, isn't true. And there were some remarkable cases in the Middle Ages where someone's been caught doing something, practicing some kind of magic, or planning to practice some kind of magic, and the court has told them, go away, don't do it, go away. Like in the 14th century, there was a man caught with a human head, and obviously he was brought to trial, and they asked him, why have you got this human head? And he said, it's all right, I didn't murder anyone, I bought it from a bloke in Spain. And what I intend to do is I intend to use it in a black magic ritual and get spirits to speak through it, and they're going to forecast the future for me. And so what the court said was, no you're not, you are going to get rid of that thing, and you are not going to do anything of the sort. And if you do, you're up before us, and it will be nasty this time. But no, he wasn't executed, and they effectively let him off with the condition that he get rid of the head. Well, as this season goes on, I hope to make a few more of these videos, and don't get scared. Thank you.